Well, welcome back to Red Dirt Catholics. James and I are kind of tired of each other. We decided that we needed a break, so that's why it was just James and Joe last week, and now it's me and Jared. And we really only record with guys whose name is Jay. Jason, Jared, James, and Joe. So if you have another letter, you're out. Archbishop Jokley. And different stuff like that. But today we have Jared Williams, who is a focus missionary at the University of Memphis. How you doing, big guy?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Jared, what's been going on in your life recently? Like, who's Jared?
Yeah. A lot. Just got back from Seek. Uh, so trying to get into the swing of things here on campus. Started some different outreach events and have just been out meeting people, trying to share the gospel.
How do you meet somebody? What are you meeting? What are you doing?
Yeah. So for Valentine's Day, we were handing out flowers. So,
Oh,
imagine a big guy like me walking up to you with a flower, like, here you go, happy Valentine's Day. Yeah.
to like other guys or like
Yeah,
ladies
other
or
guys.
all of
Yeah,
the
yeah. Absolutely.
fascinating.
Everyone deserves a happy Valentine's Day, Jayce.
That's true. I'm not saying that they don't. Uh, that's enjoyable. Did they appreciate the flowers, or were they kind of weirded out by them, or all of the above?
I think it was kind of odd at first, but like appreciative by the end, where it was just like,
Yeah,
wow,
probably
like
the
this is
more
really cool.
confidence with which you were handing them and like more sincerity, the better it came off. I would
Oh
imagine.
yeah. Oh
That
yeah.
makes sense. I just got back. So you just got back from Seek. I just got back from a youth conference. I'm going to leave out where this youth conference was because I kind of have a funny story, but I want to be kind. Um, so we're in night one at this youth conference, and they're doing a great job. The speaker is just starting. The MC had done a great job. The kids are locked in. They're listening really intently. Um, and martyrdom was a theme at this particular youth conference. And so they kind of stop halfway through the keynote speaker's presentation and they start this montage of different martyrdom. So just to like get everybody hyped up. So they've got Blessed Jose Sanchez del Rio, Joan of Arc, like all of these different movie depictions of martyrdom going on throughout this conference, and we're like, oh, awesome. But then we hear the music that they're playing during this particular montage, and the music choice is "Like a Prayer" by Madonna, the choral version that like came from Deadpool and everything, and a priest leans over to me while we're there and says, "This song is about what I think it's about, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow." And so that was a bit of a miss. I think it was came from the speaker, not necessarily from the conference, and I think it was just a mistake, but it was really funny that's what everyone was praise and worshiping to. Apparently, because of the popularity of the song more recently, a lot of Protestant churches have adopted the song and are using it in their worship services with not an understanding of what the song is actually about.
Yikes.
So that's a good time. That's a good time. So while we were at Seek, you and I got to connect. Jared is from
Yeah.
Oklahoma City. For those of you who don't necessarily understand, today we're going to kind of go through Jared's whole story because I just thought it would be great for us to talk with him about it. But what did we get up to while we were at Seek, Jared?
Yeah. So obviously cool just bumping around into you guys all over the conference, but definitely wanted to go get dinner. And so Jayce had the amazing idea to go check out a Olympic what was it, like a trials
It was the
area or something
village. It
like
was
that?
like where the Olympics were in Salt Lake City in like 2002 or something.
Exactly. So we get that beautiful idea. I know we were playing with the idea of getting in the bobsled, but you know.
This bobsled was $250 to slide
Yeah.
down, and for like 60 seconds of pure feeling like I was a part of Cool Runnings, which would have been, it was so close to being worth it. But then Xander was with us as well. We watched a YouTube video of like a GoPro attached to the front of the sled, and I was like, that's not as cool as the movie. Never mind. We're just gonna watch it. But we get there and we walk up to the gift store, and this gift store is like the only thing that's like cleared out on the property.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it had just snowed and there was a lot of stuff on the ground. And so we walk around. There's like a museum of the Olympics, and we see different gold medals, and we read about the stories. But really, we just went up there to see the bobsled go. That's really why we were there. So I'll let Jared take it from there.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out where we're even going to go to get to see this bobsled because like we can see it in the distance, but there's like literally 3 feet of snow down like a curvy stretch to even like get to where the bobsled is. And so initially I'm just like, screw it, let's go. Like we'll just walk straight through it. And I think you guys were trying to go around. So then I'm walking back and there's just snow all over me. And then we decide to get up there. And so we're just like gloshing through 3 feet of snow, trying to get there in our like slacks and conference wear. And we get to this like incline and it's like super icy. And so like I'm basically just trying to like watch my step and make sure I don't fall because I'm extremely prone to falls. And we get to the top, we watch the bobsled.
Jared, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
Prone to falls. That's important to know.
I don't know.
That's important to know.
Yeah.
Big man.
So true. So we get all the way to the top and like no falls, no nothing. Like we were good. And like literally a step before we are getting off of this incline.
So we go back down. We go back down the hill. We see the bobsled. We make our videos. Jared snaps for the newsletter. All of that fun stuff. Walk down. Start again. Sorry.
Yeah. A second before we get off of this incline, I just drop into the snow. I mean, just pancake, and I just laid there. Like I was just like,
he was one step away from getting off of the hard part, and then just goes down, and we're just cracking up at him that he's gonna be wet for the next hour. Like, and it's cold. It's cold on top of this mountain, and and we were trying so hard not to fall. Like live footage of us in that moment would have been sold for thousands on the internet because of how dumb all these kind of manly dudes look trying to get down this little hill. But then you fell again, not too long after that. Like it just all happened to you. And I'm trying to remember, did I video you falling? Maybe I did. And if I can, we'll put the video in the show notes just so people can see it. But that was a really good time. But then we got some like alcoholic hot chocolate at a cool restaurant right after that, and we had a good time.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Yes, sir. I've been playing a lot. So Oklahoma City, this is just for all of the viewers, like we're kind of in the middle or at the end of the week where schools were shut down all week because of all the ice. My son said it's Friday morning right now. And my son said today feels like Monday because this is my first day of school that I've had this week because he had President's Day off. So it's just been kind of a wild week. And this morning I got to have breakfast with focused missionaries from across our archdiocese, from OU and UCO. That's why you normally don't see me in a suit jacket. It's a pretty rare sight. But today y'all got it. I got to have breakfast with Archbishop and have a mass, and it was really, really great. But yeah, let's today we're going to be talking about kind of just Jared's story. Jared's from Oklahoma City. He's got a great story about how the Lord encountered him and really just changed the entire trajectory of your life, which is a really cool thing, and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's say a quick prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Lord, we pray that you enter into Jared's heart and let his words be your words. Let us converse together and discuss the story and let it show your glory. In your name we pray. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So Jared, give us the intro. Give us we know where the story is going to really kind of pick up. So fill in the gaps from womb to where the story picks up. Like, who are you? Where were you born? You know,
Yeah.
how'd you get
So
so
yeah.
big? How'd you get that tall? I wish I was 6'4". Like, that's like the perfect height. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I was originally born in Norman. My dad's from New Orleans, military, met my mom, and basically was raised Catholic, moved around a lot, lived in Kansas for a couple years, lived in England for 3 years too, and came back to
Where in
Oklahoma
England?
City. RAF Mildenhall. It's just next to
Can you
Mildenhall
say a word
Village.
that us in Oklahoma would know about that?
Uh,
Is that close to
yeah,
London? I've heard of that.
I mean,
Is it
it's
close
about two
to
hours,
Edinburgh?
something like
I've
that.
heard
two
of that
hours
word
north.
before. Liverpool. Just gonna keep saying British cities that I've heard of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're good. um, so yeah, basically, moved back in high school. Went to high school just outside Oklahoma City to the east, and yeah, decided to start going into work. Did some like way different jobs. I was a detention officer for 3 years, and
Which
then I worked
prison?
for well, jail, but yeah,
Oh,
Oklahoma
jail.
City. Yeah,
Oklahoma City jail.
I was
All
in
right.
Oklahoma County, technically Oklahoma
Oh,
County
okay.
jail. But so did that for about 3 years, and then got offered a job at Tinker Air Force Base. So started working there, and that's where I worked most recently before becoming a missionary. So it's kind of like at Tinker Air Force Base when I worked there that I started to get involved with young adults and ministry and really take my faith more seriously. I don't
Yeah,
know
what
that it
was
was
your
ever.
faith? What was the faith like during that time until you were from kid to adult? Like, did you get your sacraments? Did you go to mass? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, I think it was just really tough, if I'm being honest. Being in a military family, my dad was gone for a couple of years while we were in high school. And that was just a really hard experience seeing him, only every couple of months, just
Wow.
with like military service. But got my sacraments. We definitely tried to make it to mass every Sunday. I don't know that we always succeeded with that, but I think generally, like when I graduated high school and got out of my parents' thumb, it just wasn't something that I took super seriously. Was excited to sleep in on Sunday mornings,
Sure. Sure.
and not worry about going to mass.
Yeah.
But yeah, was a little bit involved in youth group when I was a kid, but like didn't take that super seriously either.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you think of a
so
podcast appropriate story from when you were at the jail? There's just something wild. Like, we watch
yeah,
we watch everyone watches true crime stuff all the time and everything. So I'm
yeah,
sure that they'd be interested to hear.
yeah. So there was one time I was locking down a kind of violent pod, and was just I had all these doors open. There were probably about 50 of them, and we were having or 25 doors were open, but basically we were having problems with inmates shoving stuff in our locks, trying to break them, and
Hmm.
so uh, all the doors are open, and like I'm looking around, making sure inmates are getting back into their cells, and I see this inmate shoving stuff into his lock, and I'm like, "Hey, man, like, what are you doing?" And he just kind of looks at me, and he just looks back at the lock and keeps doing what he was doing.
No
I was
way.
like, "Okay, like that's what we're gonna do." So I walk over to the cell, and I'm trying to get him to quit. And when I get up to the cell, I'm like, "Dude, stop!" And we get all the way to the cell, and all of a sudden he just like steps back and is like, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "I'm talking to you." And anyway, dude just swings on me for like no reason at all.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And
Throws a bone.
so I kind of weave back and I back up and I'm like trying to reach for my radio to call for, backup. And I'm reaching for pepper spray to see if I can mace this guy. And he's just running full speed after me. So finally, like at a certain point, I'm like, I can't reach these in enough time. So I just drop it and we start just kind of fighting, going back and forth for a little bit.
What?
And I got him in a headlock and I'm just like, you know, trying to do my best to get this guy to stop hurting me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at some point, he just is like hitting me through the headlock, and he hit me in the temple like right here. And I just remember like not even thinking remotely clearly, and like reaching for my pepper spray, and like I let him go, and I just like pepper sprayed like because when I looked up, there were like 15 20 inmates just like surrounding me, like as my back is against this wall. And I'm like, holy crap, this is really scary. And so I'm just like getting everybody as I'm trying to get this inmate. Like I didn't even mean to get these guys, but I'm just like
Wow.
trying to get this inmate. And so once I pulled the pepper spray out, everyone just dispersed. And like
Yeah.
then my backup ran through the door. So
Dude,
that was
that's
kind of a crazy
insane.
moment. Yeah. Yeah. Found out
And
later, dude had a shank in his pocket and was like trying to come at me. So this
oh
other
my
inmate was like, I
gosh.
saved your life that day. And I was like, that's wild.
That's crazy. That
Yeah, it was
and
crazy.
like and that didn't happen every day. Like that was a that was a rarity, I'm sure. Um
I mean, Oklahoma County is a pretty violent jail. When I worked there, we had like 654 like infractions in like 1 year. So like it was a
so maybe it
lot
did
for
happen every
sure.
day. Maybe twice a day. Maybe twice a day. Well, that's crazy. Well, keep telling me your story. That's awesome. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
awesome that
yeah.
a guy tried to shank you, but good story.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. Mom is definitely happier with the new line of work.
Yeah,
So
being a missionary.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but yeah, so basically around that time I just really was like searching, I felt like the things of the world would bring me, I think, some sense of meaning, purpose, pleasure. I think even like working at the jail, working for the Air Force, like as a civilian, um, I was really just like wanting like purpose. I really just wanted like something more. And I think looking back at it now, like I see that.
You
But it
wanted
was
something
like,
to matter.
right. No, absolutely.
Hmm.
And so putting on a uniform or, driving onto an Air Force base every day, like it definitely gave you, that sense of purpose, like
Yeah.
there was something better. But I think I just always kept walking away unfulfilled. And so, yeah, I think around it was probably winter sometime when I was working at Tinker, probably 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. Um, I had just kind of been like done with like chasing the things of this world. And I think the first thing in my mind, as any young man does when they start to question everything, it's like, man, you know what would help this situation is a virtuous woman. So like I default to I'm Catholic, like maybe I could go find a Catholic wife that will make me feel better because clearly God's not going to do that for me or something. I don't know what lie I was telling myself at that point.
Interesting thought
Um,
process, but we're glad it got you where you were.
yeah.
Keep going.
So basically went to just investigate like Catholic young adults. I'd Googled it, I think one day, and just had seen that there was like a mass meal mission or something in the city, and went, met a whole bunch of people, was still just like, I don't really know if this is my cup of tea, but like met enough people that I was able to kind of have friends and hang out and do different things. So
Great.
would come around for social events and things like that, but wouldn't really in any way say that I was taking my faith seriously. Um,
Just hunting for that wife. Hunting for the
yeah,
honey.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think
Okay.
that was definitely the thought process. So somewhere, I think December, I'd gotten an invite to come two-stepping. And like I love to dance and was just like really wanting to go do that with all of the Catholic young adults. And
Which
so
bar?
Cowboys.
Nice. I like
So
Cowboys. It's my favorite
yeah,
one.
Cowboys is awesome.
There's another one that's like not redneck or whatever, but that one it just had such an old vibe to it.
Yeah.
Whenever I
I,
went
I
there
will
once with
say, side
Danielle.
note, like I miss country bars so much. Like, there are none in
Yeah.
Memphis at all. And like I just want to listen to country music and go dance and like there's
Well, it's
nothing
kind of funny
around
because
it.
like all of Elvis's stuff is there in Memphis, isn't it? And he's got
It
he's
is
got
the
he's got a little
most
bit of a country
wild
vibe.
stuff ever to me. Like I don't get it at all.
Yeah. But Memphis is
But
more of a Motown type of vibe, even though Motown was in
yeah,
Detroit.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, basically, get this invite to come two-stepping, and they're like, we're gonna go to this thing called adoration beforehand. And being like pseudo-Catholic, I probably should have known what that was, and I had no idea. Like I just was like, what is adoration? Like we're gonna go to adoration, okay. Um, so they tell us to meet them at the cathedral, and I get there and none of the girls show up. Like literally no one is there. It's just
What a
me.
what a bait and switch, baby. No girls, just Jesus.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Um, and so I think just like experiencing a lot of like, man, this is not why I came here, but like I guess I'm gonna stay. And so um I think just getting in the pew and yeah, I mean, obviously the summit nights you guys put on are amazing. Lots of praise and worship, candlelit cathedral. The cathedral in Oklahoma City is absolutely beautiful. The
yeah.
lights are all dim. It's just really a place that you can encounter Christ in a very real way. And I think just kind of sitting there and watching as like the monstrance came out and every Catholic in the cathedral just kneels
Hmm.
and watching as
I just got chills
Christ
with you
is
saying that. That's cool.
watching Christ just like being processed through the room. And I think like seeing that people were following the monstrance with their body, like with their head, to the point where like they are literally aiming to see Jesus. And it's like in that moment, like I just became uniquely aware that like Christ is here in this room and he's in front of me. And like my life has to change like right now.
Yeah.
And not even knowing what that meant, not even knowing like anything about like what any of this was going to look like, but just
Wow.
uniquely aware that like there is a God and he is right here in front of me.
Hmm.
So,
And what a grace to get to experience. I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's simple. It's Jesus. You know, like we get the bells and whistles within Summit, which is really nice of just trying to be like the best date night with Jesus in town. But I mean, that kind of encounter can happen, you know, with the Lord anywhere. That's where it happened to you there for that moment where like you realize God is in front of you and he makes himself known to you in a more real way than your upbringing had or where you'd been at or you'd been been in the at the Air Force base. Like the question that's coming into my mind with that is like, was that a scary thing of like, whoa, this is actually real and this like demands a response from me? Like, was there fear at all coming from that moment from you? Or was it really just, I know what I have to do and it makes sense? Like, tell me more about that.
yeah, there wasn't really like a path forward, I would say. I definitely just like knew something had to change and I didn't exactly know what that meant or what that was.
Hmm.
Um and like I definitely think after understanding the like magnitude of like what happened, like it was definitely like a scary thing of just like, yeah, I've not been living my life even remotely right up until this point. And
Hmm.
so now everything in my life has got to change. And I think too, just like being around some of the other Catholic young adults and hearing some of the dialogue up until that point of just like what is sin, how does it affect us, and some of those things. It kind of just came like full circle in that moment where it was like, oh my gosh, like my life needs to change right now.
Hmm. That's amazing. My life needs to change right now. So then what happened?
So yeah, I consider this to be really just a God moment per se, but literally that night, right after adoration, once again, none of my friends are anywhere to be seen. But they do like a little, social hour or whatever, after summit. And so I'm going to get myself a little, cookie and some lemonade or whatever.
Little
Uh,
after mega epiphany snack. That stuff tires you out, baby.
yeah, yeah.
Got to
Um,
refuel.
and I
Something has
see
to change. I'm gonna eat this ham sandwich first, though. Yeah.
exactly. So I see one of my friends just kind of sitting in a corner, just like one guy that I kind of vaguely knew. And so I go sit by him, and that night I met my one of my best friends. His name is Weston Eishin. He's a another focused missionary. Serves at Louisiana Tech. At the time, he was just in college, and was kind of involved with Focus at UCO. And so Weston just like immediately we had this like kind of brotherly like familial bond, and it was just an experience where it was like, man, I feel like I've known this guy my entire life, and that's weird.
Hmm.
Um, and so
And
Weston
you had met him for the first time at Summit
at
or after
Summit,
Summit that same night?
Yeah, right after Summit, yeah. And
Wow.
so he's just like uh
So
talking about adoration, and I think he could just see that like I just had a profound experience like here, and like I'm
yeah.
sharing like bits of it, but like not even necessarily comprehending super what happened. And
Hmm.
he's just like, dude, do you like want to go grab something to eat or something? And I was like, absolutely. So the next day for breakfast, we meet at like Cattleman's for breakfast, and we spent 6 hours in a booth talking. Like it
Wow.
was the most intense conversation of just like him sharing his testimony with me kind of giving him a background about myself. And it's just like it flipped. And he was like, dude, like I'm going to this Christmas party. You should come. And I was like, okay. Flash forward to like I meet Ryan Delgado. He's like a young adult coordinator for St. Monica's there in the city.
Yeah.
And have like one of the best nights of my life, just hanging out with their young adults and really just chilling and enjoying it. And I was like really considering making St. Monica's my parish and just driving like 45 minutes from where I was in Midwest City
Hmm.
to make that my parish.
Yeah.
And I tell that to
It's
Ryan.
really tempting.
Yeah, no, and I think like, yeah, there's good community. It's really beautiful. My friends go here. This is great.
Yeah.
And, Ryan, I very intently remember him sharing with me, like, you are always welcome here, but I really think that you should start something on your side of the city. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I met Christ literally yesterday. like, and we're talking about like starting a young adults group in Midwest City.
Hmm.
So I had no idea what that meant. And I just kind of told him like I don't really know that I can do that. And he just kind of went, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Bang.
And
I say that
just like
3 times a
left
week
it.
to somebody. I love that quote. So
It's
good.
great.
Go Ryan. Shout out Ryan. Well done.
Yeah, dude.
And Weston.
Ryan's awesome. He's so cool. But yeah, so
So you get it going.
right, yeah. There were a lot of moving pieces I had to figure out. Tried to get in touch with some of the people that I knew kind of around the area, and just get a lay of the land.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we just came up with a plan. Like we're gonna just start doing events. I mean, nothing crazy. Uh, and I think pretty quickly we just started gaining like a lot of steam. And like for context, St. Philip Neri, Midwest City, it's kind of a smaller parish, not a whole lot of young people around per se. And I think just very quickly, like we were starting to get a lot of involvement. And these young people were just kind of starting to come out of the woodworks. And it was really fun. And so like in the beginning, I just really enjoyed putting on the events and like doing the different things. Um, but I definitely like wanted a larger impact. I think if anything could maybe define a charism of mine, I think it would be zeal.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes it just looks like everything sucks, and how do I fix
You
it?
are not good at this. Now let me show you how. Yeah.
Right. And so at least that was my mindset before now, I guess. And so I think I was just really trying to make Oklahoma City like a place that Catholics would want to be Catholic and come interact with the community and
And
feel
this
at
is
home.
all within months of meeting Jesus, really, for the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so I remember saying something to you and Kendra, I think in passing, at like a theology on tap.
I remember this.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't even really remember like what I was talking about, but I had just kind of like shared like I think like a vision thing that like I wanted or whatever. And like I remember, briefly talking with you about it and just being like, they do not care what I think. like at
I
all. And then
didn't.
flash
I didn't care what you
right.
thought. I was like, "Who's this guy? He's been here for 2 months, saying that we were making a slight adjustment. Kendra had just started. We were adjusting from mass meal and mission to like Lumen Christi and theology on tap, and we had a lot of thoughts behind it. And you were like, "Dude, why aren't you just doing mass meal and mission? That was perfect." And I was like, "Okay, Jared, sounds good, but keep going. That's funny." That was my
Yeah.
initial thought.
So right. And so for whatever reason, I just remember like you through Kendra, I think reaching out to me, it couldn't have been much further after that. Like
Yeah, maybe a few months later.
yeah, and it was kind of just like, hey, Jayce wants to talk to you about this thing, and we're kind of wanting to do this on like an archdiocesan level, and
Hmm.
I was like, that's cool. Like, what does that mean? Like, so I was just really excited to like talk to you
Yeah.
and see how I could be involved. And
So to flip it around on the other side of it, Jared, it was just bursting onto the young adult scene. Was at every single event, he was making his opinions known, and it got to the point where like everybody knew who Jared was immediately. And Kendra had kind of taken over young adults at that point, and I was kind of fading away, but I knew who Jared was, which was fascinating. And it just got to the point where I was hearing and seeing everything that was happening at St. Philip Neri, and I still didn't know who this guy was, even after he had like talked to me and said that we were doing everything wrong in young adult ministry. And but I was still interested, and I was like, you know what? If a person has this much zeal or gumption or just stick to itedness and already knows everybody, like there's some in my brain. I was like, there's some talent here that I was excited to cultivate. and I don't even remember how Kendra and I decided that that was something that we wanted to do. So then I was like, yeah, shout out to him, let him know that I want to call him. And basically, so I schedule it all. The call with Jared, it was in the month of May. And the only reason I know that it was in May is because when I was supposed to call him, I had randomly, we've talked about this before on the podcast. I won a World Series of Poker event in Durant, but then I had to go to Vegas to play in the next one and did really well there as well. So after the tournament, one of the days, I was like, oh, it's time for me to call Jarrett. Well, let's just get this done and over with now. So I'm just walking down the Vegas Strip, just all of the different things that you see, all of the cool things, all of the less cool things that you see on the Vegas Strip. It was all happening, and I was just dead focused on pitching Jared. I was like, look, you have all of these great qualities. I want to meet with you. I want to pray with you. I want to think things through, and like slowly build something with you. Was kind of the vision that I pitched in that moment, and while walking down Sin City, which is crazy. But you can go ahead and go from there. What your perspective was for it?
Yeah. I mean, I remember you kind of telling me like you wanted some people that were going to be boots on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of shock trooper esque, kind
Shock
of.
trooper. I use that word a lot. Yeah.
You definitely do. um, just like in the parishes and trying to start communities in a very real way. Similar to what I'd done at St. Philip Neri, but just at all of the different parishes throughout the archdiocese. So was really excited about that idea and started kind of just letting the cogs turn. And I think like this is something where I noticed like my work-life balance was just super out of whack. I remember there was a time you pulled me to the side and you're like, dude, like, how often are you praying? And I remember not having a great answer for you really at all.
Yeah, and it
Uh,
wasn't like I was quizzing him. I was just like genuinely concerned and wanted to know that. These are
yeah,
these are things that you figure out when you're in discipleship, you know?
absolutely. And so, you know, I think I felt really convicted about the prayer and like to the point where I was like, I need to pray more. Um, and I also just felt this like really strong conviction about like being around the Eucharist and like trying to hit daily masses and go to holy hours and things like that. And it's like doing all this young adult stuff at St. Philip Neri. I'm doing young adult stuff for the archdiocese. I'm working a full-time job on top of that. And I'm like trying to live a sacramental life. And it just felt like I was being pulled at like every edge or seam and just like didn't really know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like felt like there was a lot of success. Felt like we did a lot of good. Obviously, creating Zeal and being able to brainstorm that with you
That was
and
so cool.
dude, it was awesome.
You remember the moment
And
we called it Zeal?
yeah,
Tell him that.
yeah. So we're at your house, sitting at your table, just like brainstorming names,
Yeah, we're just throwing
and
things on a Word document.
yeah, I don't even remember exactly like I remember like some different names we were trying to work with or make work, and
Pathfinder
that was definitely one
was one of them.
of them. Yeah, yeah. So we were just, trying to name this thing anything so that we could just start getting stuff out there. And
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was you or if it was me or I don't know, but somebody says Zeal, and it's like, man, I like that. And I think you made the reference like, yeah, like Zeal Team 6.
Yeah, and then it was just like both of our eyes got huge. We're like, "What? This is cool. We're calling it
Yeah.
Zeal." And yeah, that's where it came up. So like we spent a year working together, kind of developing that, how we'd push it around, and then a few months after that, sorry, it's your story, not my story. I'm about
Yeah,
to tell
yeah,
your
no, you're
story.
good. You're good. So, yeah, we're just getting after it hard, and I'm really feeling this tug of just like I don't want to be on the base anymore. Like my heart is completely in ministry, and like I don't want to do this, and trying to figure out how to balance it all, how to do it right. And then you guys had offered to take me to Seek. And so I guess, even to just rewind for a second, Weston, guy that I met at Summit, had hit me up in August of that year. And while he was fundraising, was just like, hey, like, I think you'd be a really good focused missionary. And not even really understanding what that means, and just kind of like, yeah, dude, you're absolutely crazy. And then having a conversation with you about that exact moment where like,
Yeah, at the same conversation at my house, I said, "Have you ever considered like missionary life?" And you're like, "No, dude. I would never in a million years would I even entertain something like that." And I was like, "Okay, that's kind of what we're doing anyway, but fine." But keep going.
yeah. And so you guys invited me to come to Seek with you, um, and was able to just kind of hang with the archdiocese, and we brought some guys, and you know, was just experiencing the talks and the prayer, and we're going through a making missionary disciples track, and it's like, this place is awesome, this is cool. And then you find out like, oh yeah, and Focus runs this conference. And I remember wanting to see Weston at the conference. He was there with his students from Louisiana Tech, and I first time I see him, and it's probably been months since the last time. And I walk up, I'm like, man, you guys got a great missionary. He's gonna be like an awesome deacon someday. And because he's married, you know, whatever. And he goes, Jared's gonna be an awesome missionary one day. And I just remember being like, what are you talking about? Like,
Hmm.
stop. Like, can we just stop pushing this? Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
do this. Like, it's not. And so he was just like, dude, I really think you should think about it. Like, let's eat lunch at the conference one day. And so go eat lunch, and we're sitting on the floor, and I'm just like, there's people walking by, and I'm just like, I have done so much with Zeal, and just like, this is what we got going on, and these are the parishes that are involved, and you know, like, it's just going great, and like, I am so excited, and these are the things that we're doing. And he's just listening and happy and nodding along. And you know, I kind of turned it around on him like, why do you want me to be a missionary? And he's like, dude, every bit of that sounds absolutely amazing. And I think that you should leave all of it and be a missionary. I'm just like, I I don't get why. And you know, still I didn't understand why. But I ended up talking to one of the seminarians, Henry. And I remember having a conversation just because I'm an external processor. I'm telling everybody this crazy missionary dude, Weston, wants me to be a missionary. I'm like, dude, I got like a house, a car, a dog. Like, I can't just uproot and leave. This is nuts, you know? And um Henry just kind of like pulled me to the side and was like, you know, have you prayed about it? No, not at all,
That's the
actually.
dangerous part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he was just like, well, firstly, you need to pray about it. And he said, secondly, um, like, what is your goal with Zeal? And I was like, well, I just want to like lead people to know Jesus, and I want to build community. He's like, bro, Focus literally builds community. And I just remember like hearing that and being like shot, dude. Like, I just felt like, ugh,
Hmm.
like he's right. And that is frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Um, and so he gave me a book, Father Jacques Philippe, Searching for and Maintaining Peace.
Great book.
Um, yeah. And he was just like, go pray about it. And so there's a keynote session going on as we're having this conversation. And like, I remember like wanting to go to the keynote, and like my friends texted me, where are you at? and just being like, I'm gonna go pray. Like I don't, I'm just gonna go be with Jesus. And so no one is in the adoration chapel, and I just get right up front and I prayed for a while and I actually prayed in front of a JP2 relic, which I think is funny, like JP2 telling Curtis Martin, go be soldiers, and like
Yeah.
feeling like there's maybe some sort of something happening there. Um, and just feeling like, man, I think I have to like hear this guy out. And like, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be a missionary, but like,
Got to take a
I
step.
think, right. And so get out of prayer. And I remember like telling you about it, I think a little bit later, just being like, I'm probably not gonna be like,
Yeah, I mean, I could pull up the text. The second you send the text to me, he didn't even have the guts to like say it to me on the phone. He just sends me a text. He's like, "Hey, man, I gotta tell you something," and I already knew. I already knew what it was gonna be. Like, it was just tale as old as time, boring almost. Seen this movie before. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a missionary, but I probably won't be." And then I like turn over to my wife, and I'm like, "Jared's gone next year. This, I have to figure this out. God's calling him. He's stealing him. Maybe he'll bring him back." So it's just so funny, like to see that, and like I knew that that was a great thing for you. So I was proud of you.
yeah, and I think it was just the duality, right? Where it's like we finally come to fruition on Zeal,
Mm-hmm.
like to the point where like that Friday we're shooting a commercial
Yep.
to just announce Zeal to the clergy and
Yep.
like get it started. And I'm driving an hour later to go to Dallas
Interview.
for interview weekend
Yep. Sure
for
were.
Focus. And it's just, yeah, I mean, experiencing the level in which Focus does discipleship and their passion to reach souls, it just spoke to me in a way that like
Yeah.
yeah, I
Powerful.
wasn't I wasn't prepared for.
Dude, and the devil was trying to do everything to you. So you recorded the video and you were like, "Do I need a suit?" It's like you'd never applied for a job before. And I was like walking you walking it through it with you. Come on, this is true. And you know it's true. You're like, "Do I need a suit?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go buy a suit." So he's like trying to find a suit at JCPenney that day, trying to figure it all out. I don't even remember what you ended up with, but you ended up being late for some reason. Like you got stuck in traffic or whatnot. So there was just all this tumultuous stuff around you. But the Lord doesn't care about any of that. When he wants to communicate with us, it's just like he's going to cut through it and see you and be with you, and that's what he did for you. And that's awesome. Jared,
yeah.
this is a great part one. I think we're going to have you back uh this summer sometime, and to hear more about like what's happening now that you've like said yes to mission in like a super full-time way. But your story is powerful, and the main thing that like that stood out to me was just the willingness to say yes when it was obvious. I think that there's a lot of moments where we know what the Lord is calling us to, where we're like hearing it. And it's so easy for us to say no. But there were some big moments where the Lord was obvious with you and you said yes, which is a really beautiful thing. And it's just your story is a really great inspiration for all of us at the Archdiocese, for all these different things, all the tons of people who work on Summit and work on our Catholic young adult events. Like, yeah, you can be you're a bit of a poster boy in a way of just like see these things produce stuff and make things happen. And really, the Lord produces disciples. So it's great talking to you, Jared. And we'll land the plane here. And we'll bring you back again and have a sequel. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, good. This has been Red Dirt Catholics. My name is Jayce. That's Jared. We'll see you guys next time.